Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. As Superstorm Irma barrels down on the Leeward Islands, its Category 5 effects are already being felt right here in Barbados. Strong winds from its outer bands left an elderly woman without a roof on her home at St. David's Christchurch. Patsy Trotman lived there for more than 50 years, but her roof was no match for the wind gusts earlier today. Her daughter, Betty Trotman, says they will need all the assistance they can get, as the family is not in a position to carry out the repairs at this time.
When I came, my mom was really distraught. She was crying. Nothing we said to get my mom to stop crying. Nobody wants to be in a condition like this in 2017. It's really hard on my mom because she's a pensioner. She's also diabetic, so we have to be very careful with my mom. My mom we also have a nephew who's autistic who lives with my mom, so we are in desperate need. But right now, my sister lives right next to my mom, so my mom would take a little accommodation at my sister until we can get an assistance to help repair my mom's house.
Chairman of the National Assistance Board, Senator Reverend Dr. David Durant, says they are moving quickly to help the elderly lady.
Some very strong winds were coming from the south this morning, and the bad part of this roof was in the south. So by the strong wind and the rain this morning were coming from the south, the direction was changed. It lifted that part of the roof up clean and just straight out. Thankfully, no one was in the house at the time. If not, she could have been seriously injured. So here we have it now, and we have to look at ways and means now of seeing what can be done. Contacted the relevant authorities, and we're hoping to be able to see what has to be done to get this rectified.
Well, the island of Antigua appears to be in the direct path of Irma and has been experiencing windy and overcast conditions. The manager of marketing and communications of Cricket West Indies, Carol Beckford, is on the line with us. Carol, can you tell us what's happening in Antigua right now?
The background, the rain has, just after 7, so the rain has really just started a little harder than usual. The wind looks a little more aggressive. I took a drive down to the northern part and downtown, and there's obvious tide rising. And you speak to the people around, and they say that something is going to happen. So I think we're just starting to feel some of the effects of the hurricane. But people are essentially prepared in the context that they're home, their places are battened down, supermarkets were packed, and most people are at home now. There was only one gas station that was obviously open probably just over an hour and a half ago. Otherwise, people are all in and battening down, huddling together, and just waiting for the storm to ride out.
So, Carol, what's the general feeling like? Is there panic within the country?
No, not really. As I told another friend earlier, the Prime Minister took it on himself for the last couple of days, probably just a week now, to actually lead the charge, and he has been doing the awareness himself. And up to this morning, the message changed each day as the hurricane got closer. So I think, and the shelters were open from early. School, which would have started yesterday, there was a national delay on the opening because a lot of the schools are being used as shelters. The supermarkets had an oversupply of water, and there was just general buzz around people ensuring that stuff got done, and you could see people moving around to ensure that safe. So staff, people who worked with various companies had briefs, tell people not to stay by themselves, that kind of a thing. So I think there's a general awareness of just ensuring that people are safe, because it's really going based on the track. If it continues, it's going to be a bad hurricane.
Thank you so much for joining us, Carol, and we hope that you stay safe.
Thanks for having me.
That's Carol Beckford, the marketing manager of Cricket West Indies. Well, back at home, a few fishermen suffered damage to their vessels as strong seas wreaked havoc at Weston St. James. John Husbands from First Street Old Town St. James was among a number of owners trying to save their boats from the currents which meteorologists have been caused by Hurricane Irma.
I get a call this afternoon that it break the chain. When I get down here, I swim off and decking it. And then as I was going to start the engine to kick it back out, a basically come and carry it over on me. And it walked into the reef. So the guys come and help me and we try to get it on the beach like this. But damage on the inside, it could repair, but it have a lot of damage. We take a couple $1,000 to fix it.
Meanwhile, in Bridgetown, police temporarily closed Wharf Road as strong waves breaking onto the boardwalk affected visibility and caused traffic congestion. Acting Police Public Relations Officer Rodney Innes says the measures were taken to ensure safety.
You can look and you can see that the tide is rising over on the boardwalk and over on the roadway, certainly on the inner lane. We are watching to see if it will get any worse, and it will cause some traffic congestion. It has, in fact, caused a lot of traffic congestion a little earlier. What we did, we restricted traffic turning left onto the bridge from Lower Fairchild Street and turning right onto the Wharf Road from St. Michael's. We are monitoring. You have police officers all along this road. We are monitoring. If it gets any better, we will reopen the road.
Catastrophic. That is how Category 5 Hurricane Irma is being described by the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. CBC News was able to secure an exclusive interview with Executive Director Ronald Jackson. When we arrived at SEDIMA's headquarters in Lower Estate, a high-level briefing was in progress discussing the severity of Hurricane Irma as well as an immediate plan of action. SEDIMA operates a physical and virtual coordination platform, and some of the partners meeting to help with the resourcing for emergency response and relief include the United Nations, the Red Cross, the Regional Security Systems, PAHO, CARICOM Impacts, CARFA, and the Caribbean Development Bank. SEDIMA's Executive Director Ronald Jackson says Irma is on course to break devastating records.
The French territories, their seismometers, were registering the event as it approached the northern leewards where you have Guadeloupe. So in Guadeloupe, the seismometers there were picking up the force of the hurricane. Now, if that is true, it then gives you a sense of what you're really dealing with. And I mean, when you look at the wind speeds, 174 miles and greater, with higher gusts which can take you up to over 200 miles an hour, that is, I mean, you're talking about the ability to shatter, some walls. We've seen storm surge events from Mitch back in the late 2000s in the western part of the Caribbean Sea. Wasn't impacting a Caribbean state, it was impacting Latin American countries, Honduras and others. And the surge produced by Mitch broke concrete walls in the coast of Jamaica in the area of Negril. So when you're looking at storm surge of potentially 10 meters, so over 30 feet storm surge and the power that the storm is pushing, it is certainly in the realms of what we call catastrophic.
Mr. Jackson says the severity of the hurricane has forced the agency to rethink their plan of action as they prepare for a multi-island strike. They have identified 6 priority countries based on the hurricane forecast. They are Antigua and Barbuda, Montserrat, the Virgin Islands, Anguilla, Turks and Caicos, and the Bahamas. SEDIMA is readying teams to be deployed throughout the region.
We're looking at specialized teams to carry out rapid needs assessment so we can better target the emergency needs, relief needs that are going to be required for those affected states. Coordination teams to help countries with coordinating 24/7. If it's a catastrophic event, then you're looking at down power lines, no communication, no utilities, including water supply systems, especially if they're coastally run lines. You're looking at displacement of population, anywhere from 10% in some of the countries, perhaps to more. And those are the things we're working on now with the member states to get a sense of what is likely to be the displacement level from an entire island impact.
SEDIMA and its partners will continue to meet throughout the coming days to continue to plan response and recovery. Well, we just heard about how devastating some of the impacts of Hurricane Irma may have on our regional neighbors. Well, meteorologist David Best joins us now to talk a bit about the impact it would have on Barbados. Good evening, David.
Good evening to you, Shane, and good evening to all Barbados and all viewers. And in my 30-something years working at the meteorological department, this system, Irma, has absolutely left me breathless. There are two major impacts, though, that are being felt here in Barbados. The system is some 200 miles to the north of the island, of our island, and those would be the effects of the feeder bands. One such band was responsible for removing the roof of a house in Christchurch, and that is the type of activity that we are expecting from this very powerful system. Now, the other one is the marine effects, and as early as Friday, we had put out a statement indicating that as Irma draws closer to the island, we are going to be looking at deteriorating sea conditions, and they have deteriorated. Now, as a result, we put out a high surf advisory. This was put out at 3 o'clock this evening. Now, this system has been generating some large westerly to southwesterly swells, which are propagating in an easterly direction. Now, these swells are in the vicinity of 3.5 to 4 meters or 11 to 13 feet and are affecting the coastal waters of Barbados, particularly the western, southwestern, and northwestern sides of the island. Now, this activity is expected to continue tonight and into tomorrow. Now, the activity is expected to be short-lived, but it is expected to be felt more acutely around high tides. Now, as a consequence, a high surf advisory and small craft warning are in effect for Barbados, and this is from 3 o'clock this evening until 6 tomorrow evening. Now, large battering waves, dangerous rip currents can be expected, and these, of course, are going to be creating very unsafe conditions for small craft operators. Now, sea bathers, we are urging you to stay out of the sea. Now, a small craft warning is also in effect. We are looking at swells again in the vicinity of 10 feet. And wind speeds of about 28 to 60 miles per hour. So very dangerous conditions. We are urging you to stay out of the sea. It's expected to be relatively short-lived. The system is moving rather rapidly, and I'll give you further details in the main section. Shane?
Thank you so much, David. Well, the island's surfing community is tonight in a state of mourning following the loss of one of their own. Kareem Smith was on the scene and filed this report.
The rough seas at Cattle Wash have claimed the life of a 16-year-old with a promising future in the sport of surfing. According to police, Xander Venezia was out surfing with a group of experienced surfers when he was struck by a wave and disappeared underwater. Eyewitnesses say when he emerged, he was bleeding and unconscious. He was then rushed to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. At a nearby shop, a number of surfers were congregating and openly grieving, one of them with various cuts he received at sea. However, they asked not to be photographed or interviewed. On a nearby cliff, 3 long-standing surfers described Xander as an exceptional surfer with a bright future and a good personality. Despite the presence of Hurricane Irma in the region, they were adamant that the surfers were not acting recklessly but merely taking advantage of excellent conditions for the sport. On Xander's Facebook page, condolences were streaming in for his friends and family, all because of an accident now being described by surfers as unlucky. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Okay, we'll take a short break here and come back with more news.
Come to Shoemax, where you can find a variety of school shoes. We have Puma, Hush Puppies, K-Swiss, and sneakers for sports. Come check us out on Palmetto Street, Bridgetown.
Watch the programs of the Barbados Government Information Service to find out how the ministries and government departments can work for you.
Learn about the latest health trends, the legislative and judicial system, and what's going on in our school.
Hear firsthand how government's policies affect businesses, the environment, and your pockets. Learn your consumer rights and hear about exciting developments in renewable energy.
Meet outstanding Barbadians, celebrate our culture, and relive our history. Find out what social services are available to you and learn more about your rights as an employee. Never miss Sundays at 7:30 p.m.
Mondays and Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. on this station.
Watch us in high definition on our YouTube channel, the BGIS, and like our Facebook page.
The Barbados Government Information Service. We keep you informed.
Question: when is the last time you saw a giant African snail? Well, if you haven't in a while, that's because there has been a major reduction of the pest on the island. And one of the reasons has been the Ministry of Agriculture's bounty program. Lisa Lord reports.
400 tons. That's how many snails the Ministry of Agriculture has collected. Head of Entomology Ian Gibbs says the bounty program has been very successful in eradicating the pest since it started 8 years ago.
Now, if you can't imagine what 400 tons of those snails look like, you know those big container trucks that haul the cane on the highway? Imagine you line up 20 of them end to end, full. That's the approximately amount of snails that will equate to 400 tons.
And that bounty program is still open.
You collect them and you're paid at the rate of 50 cents a pound. Yeah. And anybody can take part in it. You simply collect the snails, you inform us, you give us a call, and we will come and collect them from you, weigh them in your presence that you can see the weight, give you a receipt for them, and then our accounts section will call you and let you know when the money is ready that you can collect it.
Mr. Gibbs says Barbadians have also been playing their part by using various kinds of bait and drowning them in salt water. Additionally, there are about 12 species of predators that are literally making a meal of the snails.
These things include things like blackbirds and cattle egrets and centipedes and land turtles and rats and chickens, a whole host of different things feeding on them. In addition to that, there is a parasitic mite that will feed on the body fluids of the giant African snail and help to make it less productive. And in the case of the juveniles, it can kill the juveniles as well.
On another issue, just last week, several videos were circulating on social media of what appeared to be an invasion of locusts in parts of Trinidad. But Mr. Gibbs says they were actually grasshoppers, which are indigenous to the island.
Particularly in the Moruga area, which is in the southeastern part of Trinidad, and it lives in the forest there. It's not usually a problem, but periodically it will flare up, the populations will flare up, and it will become almost like a locust. This particular type of grasshopper exhibits behavior very similar to a locust. No, all locusts are grasshoppers, but all grasshoppers are not locusts.
The entomologist says because they're only found in Trinidad, there is no reason for Barbados to worry. But officials will continue to monitor any other harmful pests that could pose a threat to the island's crops. Lisa Lord, CBC News.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, after more than 3 years fostering a stronger relationship between China and Barbados, Chinese Ambassador Wang Ke said goodbye to the island she has come to love. The ambassador takes some comfort, however, in knowing she leaves the ties between her nation and Barbados stronger than when she arrived. This came over during a farewell function held in her honor last evening at the Hilton. Kent Jerson reports.
Many local, public and private sector officials attended this event for Chinese Ambassador Wang Ke. In an emotional farewell, she says her tour of duty in Barbados has been unforgettable.
Staying here for more than 1,300 days caused me to fall in love with this paradise island and its people, and that will be the most unforgettable memories for the rest of my life.
Addressing the many dignitaries gathered for the event, the ambassador says her country and Barbados have forged deeper and stronger ties during her tenure.
The two countries signed a treaty on mutual assistance on criminal matters and treaty of extradition and an agreement on mutual visa exemption for holders of all kinds of passports. Bilateral trade of our two countries increased to 5 consecutive years, which made China the 4th largest trade partner of Barbados. Financed by China Exim Bank, the rehabilitation of Sam Lodge Castle Resort commenced. Assisted by Chinese grants, Sir Garfield Sober's Gymnasium, after having been extensively renovated, was handed over to the government of Barbados.
In addition, there have been more scholarships for Barbados to study in China, computers and other teaching tools donated for primary and secondary schools, and medical services provided through the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Acknowledging the credible work done by the ambassador, Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Minister Senator Maxine McLean was full of praise for the diplomat's ability to deliver and the way in which she carried out her duties.
In the few years that I've known and interacted with Ambassador Wang, I have always found her to be personable, diligent, and focused on the role assigned to her by her government, namely to strengthen and enhance the relations between Barbados and the People's Republic of China. It is my view, widely shared I'm sure, that Ambassador Wang has fulfilled her mandate with consummate grace and a body of outstanding achievements.
Senator McLean adds she's confident the dynamism and enthusiasm shown by the ambassador will serve her well on her next assignment. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
A 34-year-old civil engineer who is alleged to have trafficked over $800,000 worth of cannabis into the island has been remanded to Dodds Prison. This after appearing in the District A Magistrates Court. Dwayne Ryan Gittins of Lot 405 Westwood Drive, Husband St. James, was not required to plead to the indictable charges of possession with intent to supply, and trafficking of 418.8 pounds of the drugs. The drugs were reportedly found at the port on August 31st in 40 pails of adhesive glue. Gittins, who appeared before acting magistrate Sandra Rawlins, is being represented by attorney Arthur Holder. Gittins returns to court on October 2nd. After the break, we'll take a look at stories making headlines across our region.
There's a hero if you look inside your heart. You don't have to be afraid of what you are. And there's an answer.
Thank you so much for helping us to make a difference in the lives of so many people here in the Caribbean.
Thank you so much.
So from all of us here in the Caribbean, we'd like to say a big
Save big with the back-to-school shoe sale happening now at Fresh for Less Footwear and Accessories, where you can buy one pair and get a second pair half price on selected styles. Choose from K-Swiss, Nike Air Force Ones, Huarache, and Rocher Runs. Clarks, Adidas, and Puma are also available at low prices. Special ordering and layaway is available. 3 locations open 6 days a week to serve you. Bridge Street Mall, the Colonnade, and Sky Mall. So save big with the back-to-school shoe sale happening now at Fresh for Less. Call 437-5377 and check Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook for more info.
Gotta be fresh.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the conduct of the former port chairman came under question as the first day of a joint select committee examining the ferry fiasco began. Christine Shadeo was accused by members of her board and the management of the port of questionable conduct.
As the former Port Authority board appeared before a joint select committee on land and physical infrastructure this afternoon, fractures that existed became evident.
There's an incident in which incorrect minutes were sent to the minister, initialed by the chairman. Not signed, she initialed them. And I drew it to the board's attention.
Former Port Authority Commissioner Ferdy Ferreira pointed to a deeply divided board as he addressed the joint select committee meeting. As members focused their questions on the superfast Galicia, the true extent of those divisions became clear. Mr. Hadio claims that she found several inconsistencies in the tender documents that were put out back in 2016. In fact, at one point she claims someone deliberately changed the specifications in the original tender, suggesting it was done to favor a particular vessel.
When I asked how was those specifications changed, as the GM indicated she was instructed so. When we asked by whom, we never got an answer.
But former member Ferreira told the hearing that the concerns about the superfast Galicia were not that of the board, but Mr. Hadio's. He says as far as he knew, the board and the then Minister Fitzgerald Hines had approved the renewal of the Galicia contract for 18 months.
All we did, based on the prevailing circumstances, which we felt was in the best interest of the users of the service, was to extend the contract for 18 months.
However, it appeared members of management also wrote complaining about the conduct of Mr. Hadio, including one Mr. Leon Grant.
Still, this letter is saying that the former chairman went behind the back of the management and had conversation aimed at frustrating the efforts of this decision. Now, these are very serious matters.
Mr. Hadio maintains that the additional costs associated with the superfast Galicia made it unsuitable. She said at the time many did not know of the use of a barge, labor and other factors. After listening to the contributions of the former board, JSC member Franklin Khan concluded that the board was dysfunctional. Ferdy Ferreira maintained they were dismissed and he was informed by a very powerful person in government about the decision.
Over in Jamaica, the police high command misled the country last Friday when it cited murder figures to justify Mount Salem and St. James being declared the first zone of special operations. The misleading figures given to the government are causing it severe embarrassment. It's understood the Holness administration has reported the matter to the Police Service Commission for what's being described as the strongest action to be taken. Sports is just ahead, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Lock your car and take the keys with you, even if you're only going to be gone for a few minutes. This auto theft prevention tip is brought to you in association with the Royal Barbados Police Force.